Okay, the goal of this video is to make speed training as simple as possible and to get you guys to learn the most basic and most important things about increasing your speed. There's so much information out there and it's hard to take it all in when there's so much being thrown at you. So I'm only going to be covering the most important things that you guys need to know in all three of these categories, in sprinting, plyos, and weight training. And all three of these are going to be designed, obviously to help you run faster and to increase your speed. But there's key, fundamental, important things that we need to go over within each one of these. And they're going to be pretty basic, pretty simple, but they're going to be super important for you to know in all of your training leading up to speed development and getting faster. So that's what we got for this video. And I'm going to be starting at number one in the sprinting category. And that number one key idea is you need to take full recovery. So I'm going to write that down. So I wrote down full recovery equals full effort. One of the most important things you need to know about sprint training when you're actually sprinting to get faster, because by the way, that's the best way you can get faster, is you just need to sprint more often. It's the best exercise to get faster, is just sprinting more often. But the most important thing about sprinting when you are doing that, you need to be taking full recovery. If you're tired before your next rep, then you're not giving full effort on that next rep. Obviously, if we're training our aerobic capacity or we're training for speed endurance, that's a different story. And there's definitely times for that. But if we're just training specifically for our speed development, then it requires full effort, and you can only give full effort if you do full recovery. So don't start the next rep until you're fully recovered. It's that simple. And that honestly makes things a lot easier. People don't want to be doing things when they're tired, so that one should be an easy one for everyone. Okay, number two, I'm going to write it down. All right, so the second most important thing about sprinting is we need to be consistent, okay? That means at least 3 times a week. You can do more if you want. A lot of people say you shouldn't go past 3 times a week. It's okay if you do. If you're an experienced athlete, you have no injuries, and your body feels amazing, there's no problem with going more than 3 times a week, but we definitely want to be doing some sort of sprinting 3 times a week, whether that's just doing some build-ups and getting up to your top speed once. That counts as a day, 100%. That could be just working on some acceleration stuff, doing some 30 hards, doing some 40-meter dashes, doing some sled pulls, whatever it is that is the movement of sprinting, that's full speed, that counts as a day, and that should be done at least 3 times a week. And our fast twitch muscle fibers, which are being trained like crazy during sprinting, because sprinting is such a fast movement, won't be going away. They'll only be getting faster and faster as we sprint more often with full recovery. So that's number two. Number three is to do creative start variations. And this is going to be so important because each different start variation is tailored for a different purpose, and it's going to be training our nervous system to get better at whatever that start variation is used for. So I'm going to write that down. Okay, creative variations. So a few examples of different creative variations that you guys should be doing, and for the different purposes that each one of them have. An example would be to work on low heel recovery in the start of your race. You would want to do single leg RDL sprint starts. These are going to be helping you get that triple extension off of the start of your race, and it's going to help you with the low heel recovery to then apply more force in the right direction and spending less time in the air while doing so. So there's a lot of different things that come out of just one drill like that, just the single leg RDL sprint start. Another one could be a kneeling sprint start where you're starting on your knees. Another one could be a kneeling med ball sprint start where you throw the med ball forward as you're leaning into that kneeling position, and you explode out of that kneeling position as you throw the ball. It's going to help you with that vertical force and staying low. And the good thing about vertical force in the start, the more you're thinking about the vertical force and the more you're actually doing it, the more you're staying low. Because if you're low, your body angle is correct. And if your body angle is correct, then that force is being applied backwards into the ground. Whereas if your body is upward, then in the start at least, then the force would not be getting applied vertically, but more so horizontally, or it would just make your foot land in front of your hip. So this is a great position that we want to be in, which the med ball sprint start throw would help a lot with. Another good one for triple extension would be doing 2 single leg bounds, and then on that third one, when you hit the ground and you land, then you would take off running. And that way it helps your mind muscle connection, coordination, and nervous system to learn what it feels like to be bounding and striding and putting a lot of force into the ground on each step. And then from there, go into a sprint, which you're already going to be bounding and striding. So you're just going to immediately go into that through the sprint. So there's different variations you can get creative with when it comes to these that are going to help with different things in your start. All right, number 4 is we want to be working on our acceleration and our top speed differently. And I'm going to give you 2 exercises for each one. The best 2 exercises probably that still will go into the sprinting category for the top speed and the acceleration. So I'll write them real quick. Okay, so for your acceleration, your drive phase, your start, the best thing that you can be working on is sled pulls. Sled pulls are going to be forcing you to have a positive body angle because something's wrapped around your waist and you're pulling something. It's going to force you to have a low heel recovery because, the more you pick up your legs on sled pulls, the slower you're going to be going because everything is about force and not about a fast turnover rate with sled pulls. Especially if you're racing someone that's also pulling a sled, you're going to really want to beat them. So you're going to be putting more force on the ground this way. And it's just going to help with that mind muscle connection, with that coordination of applying a lot of force in the right direction. And then the best exercise for top speed when it just comes for the sprinting category would be some flies, like some flying 30s. So how these are done is you either jog or build up to a cone, and right when you hit that cone or right when you hit that line or whatever you have set, then you're gonna get into your top speed. So there's not an acceleration portion of this movement. There is no we're building up into our top speed. It's mentally you immediately get put into your top speed. You're opened up, you're super loose, and your legs are moving fast, your arms are moving fast as soon as you hit that cone, and you're doing that for however many meters you say. A lot of people do flying 30s. That's a super common one. But the whole point of those is to not have a drive phase. We're not getting low, focus on our force and slowly working up into a top speed. That's not what a flying 30 is. A flying 30 is you're either walking, jogging, or slightly building up into a top speed. But it's like an instant switch. It's not like a gradual build up into it. So that's going to be really good for increasing your top speed and teaching your body what that feels like. And why flies are teaching our body what top speed feels like, more so than actual true top speed, which would be a full drive phase and acceleration transition phase and then top speed, is that whole drive phase and acceleration phase and then a transition phase takes a ton of energy out of you. It's extremely taxing on the body. And while yes, obviously that's the fastest way to do it, and you're going to be in your top speed the fastest that way, that's how we sprint, that's how we race. But this way, we're getting to our top speed without expending a ton of energy, and we're just getting there so we can really know what that feels like without having to expend a ton of energy and get tired before being at that top speed. All right, done with the sprinting category. Quick run over. You got to have full recovery. Be consistent. Sprint 3 times a week. Do creative variations of sprint starts, and do sled pulls for your start and do flies for your top speed. All right, moving into PLYOS. Number 1 for the PLYOS is we want 80% of our PLYOS to be done within a short ground contact, and the other 20% can be normal PLYOS that have long ground contact. Like an example of those would be vertical jumps or broad jumps. So when you do a vertical jump, your feet start on the ground and there's no short ground contact. It's just an explosive movement, which is still considered a plyometric. So those are great, but we want to be doing those type, the 20%, the long ground contact time plyometrics should be done after a weighted movement. So after you do a squat or after you're doing a single leg barbell Bulgarian split squat. Then you can move into a long ground contact time plyometric. So when you're supersetting, then those are good times to do long ground contact time plyometrics. But 80% of your plyos should be short ground contact plyometrics, because that's really what the main goal of the plyos are, is to decrease your ground contact time. And in doing so, that's going to increase your elasticity, which I'll get into more, but I'm going to write that first one. So 80% of your plyos should be short ground contact, 20% can be long ground contact, but the 20% should be done after a weighted movement, preferably a weighted power movement. But the goal of plyometrics is to decrease your ground contact time, so that's why the shorter the ground contact time of the plyometric, the better it's going to be. All right, number 2 for the plyometrics is we want to be doing different directional plyometrics. So there's a big difference between vertical plyometrics, horizontal plyometrics, and lateral plyometrics. But you want to be doing all three. A lot of people neglect the lateral and the horizontal plyometrics, and they just focus on the vertical, which are the common plyometrics. You see a lot of pogos for height. You see a lot of things for height, which is good, but it's a little bit overused with the plyometrics. And when you're sprinting, you're not going for height. You're never going for height. You're always going for distance, because that's what's important in sprinting, is horizontal speed, not vertical. So our plyometrics need to be simulating that, and we need to be getting good at applying horizontal force within a short ground contact. That's like triple broad jumps. That's like single leg depth drop to single leg broad jump. That's like pogos for height and distance at the same time. That's like skips for distance. Any sort of single leg bound for distance. Things that we're doing for distance that have short ground contact are going to be amazing. And don't forget the lateral movements as well, because in sprinting, if you really zoom in on elite sprinters, their force that they're applying into the ground isn't just going straight back. There's a little bit of lateral movements that is happening as the sprinter is applying the force. All right, it's slight. You're gonna have to zoom in, but it's there. So the lateral plyometrics are also not used enough and never really used at all, but it also can help hit different parts of the ankle and of the foot to just get a more well-rounded stabilization on the foot, which everything in sprinting starts at the foot and is applied through the foot and the ankle and the stiffness of the ankles. So that's super important to be training and to know that there's a lot more than just vertical force that needs to be happening in plyometrics. So I forgot to write any of that down, but let me write it. All right, vertical, horizontal, and lateral. Do all three type of plyometrics. Number 3 is there's triple extension plyometrics, and there's more so speed plyometrics. And in the speed plyometrics, for example, like quick up and downs, or sprinting in place, or 5 for 5, or backward dribbles, these type of plyometrics are obviously good, and they're going to have their purposes, and they're good for certain things, but those aren't triple extension plyometrics. And a really good reason of why we do plyometrics is to get used to triple extension. That's another reason why power clean is so good. That's why so many coaches push power clean, is because it's a really good triple extension movement, and we're getting that triple extension under weight. But technically the plyos that get triple extension are just as good, because triple extension in and of itself is what's important, not the power clean, not the broad jump. What's important is the triple extension that we're getting from them. So you want to make sure that the plyometrics that you're doing are having triple extension in them, and that way we're going to be used to it. So when we go and apply that force into the track, our triple extension's already going to be there, and we're going to be able to get that separation between the legs and get our hips through, and it's going to allow us to have better form and to apply more force in the right direction within a shorter ground contact. So I'm going to write that down: vertical versus speed plyos. So again, time and a place for everything, but that's why it's important to know your strengths and weaknesses, so you know what you need to work on, and that way you can know if you need to be focusing more so on the triple extension plyos or the speed plyos for your goals and for that specific weakness that you have to then get better at it. All right, that's plyos. So the quick overview for that, make sure your plyos are mainly short ground contact plyos, vertical plyos, horizontal plyos, and lateral plyos. Do all three, not just vertical. And I wrote vertical here. I don't know why I did that. I meant triple extension. All right, triple extension and speed plyos. Make sure you know which one you're optimizing for your goals. All right, now weights. This is going to be super important. Guys, if you're not strong, you can't be fast. So a lot of people, there's a lot of misconception around weight room training. Is it important? Is it necessary? The answer is it is important and it is pretty necessary, but obviously it depends on the athlete you are. But the most important thing for weight room training is you can't get stronger unless you progressive overload. So let me write it. All right, progressive overload. There's no such thing as getting stronger in the weight room and increasing your weights over time if you don't progressive overload. So progressive overloading is literally just making sure that each time you come back into the weight room and you repeat a weight room exercise that you did before, you're adding weight. That's super important. So if we're just doing light weight all the time that we're used to and we can just easily do it, there's no adaptation. Our muscles are used to it and they're not going to grow if they're used to it. So, and that even applies in power movements and even ultra fast weight room speed movements. All right. Even if we're going for a super fast bar speed, we still need to be progressive overloading it. That doesn't mean we need to be, doing our max weight and just trying to move it as fast as we can for our speed days. But it just means that whatever weight you're doing, you need to be increasing it over time. That's super important. That's the most important thing here. All right, and then number 2 is we got to go through seasons of training. So let me write it down. All right, so the seasons of training is going to look generally like you want to first get super strong. So it's probably right after your season ends. Then you're just going to focus on the compound lifts and just get super strong within each lift, building up your strength back from what you lost during the season. And really just get that base that you're going to be using in all the seasons to come, because your base is super important. And again, if you're not strong, if you don't have a good base, then you can't be powerful. And if you can't be powerful, there's no explosiveness. So you first need to be strong before anything else. So first season, you got to get strong. Second season, you got to get powerful. So we're dropping the weight a little bit and we're moving it even faster, which again, we're still progressive overloading, just in a different zone. So when we start power, our weights are dropping, but they're going to be increasing as we go along the season of power. Okay, so moving the weight faster, we can superset some plyometrics with those, and then we're going into even less weight, moving even faster, supersetting with even more plyometrics, and doing a lot of super fast movements as well. So those are the seasons of weight room training. So it's super simple. Just get strong, and then get powerful, and then get even more powerful, even faster. So that's the basics of the seasons of weight room training. All right, number 3 is we need to be working isometrics and overcoming isometrics. Let me explain why after I write it. All right, isometrics and overcoming isometrics. The reason why these are so important is because isometrics increase your elasticity. So your elastic ability is going to be helping you decrease your energy expenditure throughout a race. It's also going to be decreasing your ground contact time, and it's literally what makes you more springy and more elastic, and it is literally the thing that takes your power and strength that you've been building in the weight room and apply it into usable force production into the ground. So our elasticity is super important for all of those reasons, and it is trained through obviously elastic things. So whenever you're doing pogos, that's training your elastic ability and training your ankle stiffness. But in the weight room, training with weights, the thing that's going to be increasing elasticity is isometrics. So holding one position and overcoming isometrics, pushing into an immovable object as hard as you possibly can. So both of these are going to be increasing the elasticity in the foot, the ankle, the soleus, the Achilles, everything that is required to be elastic comes from your knee down, mainly your foot. So literally your toes, everything from your toes to your ankle to your Achilles, the tendon of the Achilles, the soleus, the calf, all of that stuff is needs to be trained and put under lots of pressure during the isometrics and overcoming isometrics, because when you sprint, you're having to absorb and then produce a ton of force under so much load, because it's not just your body weight that it's holding up within a short ground contact, but you're also pushing into it without your heel even touching the ground. So in order to handle that, in order for our Achilles and soleus and ankle and foot and toes and calf to be able to handle that load and that pressure, we need to be training it in the weight room under lots of load as well. So that's what's going to be increasing the elasticity, which again will be decreasing our energy expenditure throughout the race, which is so important, which I can make a whole other video on how everyone's slowing down and all that stuff. But this is the whole system of how to get faster, and it's the most basic and most important fundamental principles within each of the categories. And if you do these consistently over time, there's no way you don't get faster. There's just no way. And the only thing I didn't really mention in here that's also super important is you do want to know what your own strengths and weaknesses are, because once you find out those, then you can pinpoint what you need to be working on mainly. I actually have a full video specialized for different type of athletes. I have like timestamps under the video on if you're a strong but fast athlete, strong but weak athlete, weak but slow athlete, or weak but fast athlete. I have a full course for each one of those four, depending on which one you are, to help you specifically. It's on my channel. It's just called like the Full Guide to Faster Running, Personalized for You, Full Guide, something like that. But you should go watch that video, because having something that's personalized for you is super important, because every athlete is different and needs to be working on different things depending on their adaptation and what they're good at. And I also didn't go over running form in this. There's obviously running form's a huge aspect to running faster. If you're just completely flailing, or your legs aren't landing in the right spot, or your backside or front side mechanics are wrong, then it's going to be leaving a lot of speed on the table, which I can make another video about. I don't think I've done a video on my channel yet on form, but that's the basics. If you do this, you'll get faster. I'll put these things in the description so you can like screenshot it, or at least just know what they are, because my handwriting's bad and it's probably hard to see. But there you go. Hope you guys learned something from that one, and I'll see you on the next video.